Do you have a teddy bear? Is that your toy this morning? She brought up her stuffed teddy bear to keep her company while I talk to the camera. I'm also wearing a fantastic, well, it's a fantastic Beast shirt, but it's been repurposed to Disney and Stitch. Mom and I are watching through the Harry Potter movies, and we're doing the Fantastic Beast movies first. Which are good. I like the Fantastic Beast movies, and I grew up on the Harry Potter movies, so I very much like them as well. So we'll see how this goes. It's been a while since she's watched through them. Okay, time for the last Denjiro video. And then I'll be moving on to Izo and Kiku, I believe, are the next ones that I'll be moving on to. So, when we last left them, Kirishiro had revealed himself to be Denjiro, and proved that by explaining, I know what happened with the mountain god incident and everything else like that. So he proved that he's Denjiro. And now he's brought all of his forces that he's built up as Kirishiro, with all the people that are sworn to him, that probably don't necessarily like Kaido all that much anyway. Or like Orochi all that much anyway, so, but they're sworn to him, and they're going this, and he's, revealing who he really is and everything, and, revealing that he's one of the Scabbards and everything, and that they're there to try to take down Kaido and Orochi and free Wano. So I'm sure a lot of those are like, yeah, no, we're gonna follow them. Also he brought a ton, all of the samurai that had been gathered up and locked away in the Retsetsu town and the prison gallery and stuff. So he's come with a good chunk of reinforcements to help. So the way that they play this is, of course, they show up and they met at the Habu port, which is not the port where Kinemon and his group went, I believe. And he, since Yasuye had altered the message and everything for where they were supposed to meet, and Kinemon didn't quite get it correct, but everybody else read it correctly except for Kinemon, and that of course threw things off. And now Kanjuro was revealed to be the traitor and everything else like that. And now Denjiro is showing up, and he's just like, he's praising Kinemon, saying that Kinemon had a brilliant plan and everything. And Kinemon's just standing there like, yeah, we're going to pretend that was entirely my plan. That was my plan the entire time. It's just like, no, it wasn't. And everything. And Denjiro's just praising him, and all the other Scabbards are just looking at Kinemon like, are you going to correct him and tell him that it was all a big mistake? That you misunderstood the message from Yasuye, which is like, we don't have time for that. Too forward! And, so they've all met up and everything. And they're all now headed to Onigashima, the 5,400 of them, including the Straw Hats and the Heart Pirates and the Kid Pirates and all the Minks and everything else like that, are all now headed to Onigashima. So there's some bits where they end up inside of Lost Submarine discussing some of the plans and everything like that, and discussing, okay, so this group is going to go this way around the island, this group's going to go this way around the island, we're going to meet up at the back, and blah, 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 blah. So we're just getting some of that basic planning out of the way. That doesn't take too much time to deal with, as they are getting to the island. They get past the Torii Gate, they end up, interacting with Jinbei once he shows up and everything, and helps sink a couple of the other ships from the Beast Pirates. Let's see. Denjiro was like there while this stuff is happening, and he's like kind of, taking out, he's just kind of observing what the Straw Hats are doing, because like he clashed with Zoro, and he kind of saw what the Straw Hats were a little bit capable of, but he hasn't seen that much of them, so he's very much impressed with them taking down the guards at the Torii Gate really easily and everything. And then, of course, they all get to Onigashima. They all get off the boats. They burn the boats. I don't know why you want to go out there. Nobody else is up right now. I want to be petted. Okay. I can accommodate you wanting to be petted. I can do that. And what ends up happening is, they get to the front of Onigashima, and then Kinemon does his clothing jutsu and everything to get everybody into their various beast pirates disguises and everything. And then they start hanging around. They break into two groups with Kinemon leading one group, and then Denjiro leads the other group. And they are making their way around Onigashima to then meet at the back door to then sneak attack from the back. And on the way around, Denjiro's group runs into Sasaki. Now, one of the things that I kind of left out in the previous video as Kirishiro is that I know I left it out in the last video. I'm going to tell them about it now. Silly dog. I love you. You're a good girl. You're a very good girl. Yes, you are. I love you. Well, her response was to burp, if anybody would like to know. Her response to I love you was burp. So they run into Sasaki, and Denjiro, as Kirishiro, actually is kind of friends with Sasaki. And of course, Sasaki at this point in time recognizes that he's Denjiro, or recognizes that he's Kirishiro, but he's like, hey, why are you in those clothes? What happened to your ponytail muff warmer thing that you wear? Still don't understand that thing. And then, Denjiro's like, well, I came because I wanted to be part of the party and everything, so he catches Sasaki off guard. And he's like, okay, well, let's go make a drinking game. Let's go just have some drinks. So he takes tricks Sasaki, takes him over to this tree and ties Sasaki up to the tree and then just leaves him there. I don't know if we ever find out if those were sea prism cuffs that they had on him, but they clearly are strong enough to hold Sasaki in place, because he doesn't show back up in the fight again until after one of Big Mom's sovereign, Kikoku cannons or whatever ends up hitting the tree and destroying the tree enough that Sasaki's able to get away. So he's kept out of the fight for a while. So they tie him up, and then they finish making their way back around. Once they are now on the backside of the island, on the backside of Onigashima, this is where they end up running into, they're reunited with the rest of the Scabbards, and this is where Izo and Nekomamushi show back up, or where they show up, where they're dropped off by Marco, so that's where they get to be. And, the rest of, Nekomamushi's forces have shown up as well and everything, and they're going to go join the other minks on the roof and everything to help with the ambush there. So they're there, and then they end up having to deal with Kanjuro, because they're delayed by him because he shows up and starts trying to fight them with his, ink drawings. And, so they have that little skirmish there. They seemingly... Kiku seemingly takes out Kanjuro. I'll talk about that more when I get to Kiku's video, and I talked about it already with the Kanjuro. But they get that taken care of, and then they're like, okay, time to head in, time to take care of Kaido. They then start rushing their way through the back part of the castle. Now, one of the reasons, of course, that they have a good way of doing this is because, A, they have the blueprints that Ashura Doji managed to get his hands on a long time ago that have the blueprints for Kaido's castle, so they're able to plan out that part. Also, quite certain that Denjiro, as Kirishiro, has been here several times before for previous fire festivals over the last 20 years. Sometimes he may have been left in charge of, the flower capital. Sometimes he may have accompanied Orochi, whatever, but he's probably been here a couple of times. And possibly taken time to, zip away and scout out parts of the castle and then come back over the last over the last 2 decades that he's had to pretend to be Kirishiro and everything. But so they start making their way all the way to the live stage, to the performance stage, and they burst through the door right after Kaido has decapitated Orochi, which I kind of think a lot of them would have had a bit of catharsis. Watching, Orochi be decapitated, even if it was by Kaido. I think they would have still gotten some bit of, satisfaction out of that for Orochi, who has betrayed like almost everybody around him, is, now being betrayed by Kaido. So I think that there's like a bit of, uh, a bit of, not coincidence, but, well, this is what's going to happen to you. If all you do is betray people, you're going to get betrayed, type of a thing. So I think that there's something with that. I still plan on doing a Kaido video at some point in time, or videos, as the case would be. I just haven't 100% decided if that's going to be part of my Wano series, probably, or something else. But probably Wano, just because Kaido is very much a part of the Wano arc, and that's where he's the main villain. The main antagonist and everything. So what ends up happening is they rush on the live stage. Orochi's body is over in the corner. They don't really pay much mind to it. They jump on Kaido, and Kaido is just ambushed by this because, like, he didn't have his hockey, his observation hockey going and everything like that to try to detect this threat. So they jump, they hit Kaido. They all are stabbing into him with their swords as best they can. Their swords or weapons or whatever as best they can, stabbing into him, trying to cause at least as much initial damage as they can. Doesn't necessarily do that much, but they're trying. And they fall to the ground and fall through the floor. And then they're in like the part of the basement area of Onigashima. And then they start unleashing other attacks at him and everything, trying to at least inflict some wounds on Kaido. They are not that many wounds, are more superficial given how freaking powerful and, just strong in general and durable Kaido is and everything. Same thing with Big Mom. It doesn't cause that much damage, but it's at least something. It's trying, it's, it's initial volley type of a thing. And Kaido is just like, oh, it's all of you guys. Okay, well, I guess we're doing this. And then he turns into his dragon form and flies through the hole and flies towards the roof, where he just makes a giant hole in the roof. And all the Scabbards have, like, grabbed onto him, either shoving their swords into him to help them so they stay on him, or just grabbing onto Kaido's scales in general. Side note, and I'll probably bring this up at some point in the Kaido videos whenever I talk about Kaido, or if I ever talk about Yamato in a full video, as for, like, Yamato's life. Do you think there were ever times where, like, before, like, the big schism happened between Kaido and Yamato, that Kaido would just, like, take Yamato flying and let Yamato, like, sit on Kaido's head and, like, hold onto his horns as, like, Kaido flew around? Do you ever think that that was maybe a thing that happened? Kind of like how Luffy rides on Momonosuke when he's, in his big dragon form. Do you ever think that happened? I think that had to have happened at least once. I don't know when, but I think it did. So from there, they're all those Scabbards are like hanging on to Kaido as he flies, from the ground through the live stage up to the roof, bursts through the roof, and is now on top of the Skull Dome. As I said, I love the design of Kaido's castle. He did an amazing job with designing this castle, and with having Momotaro, whatever his name was, the builder guy, having him design the mansion and everything. Great design techniques. Extreme Home Makeover with like a word and a collab. So what ends up happening is now Kaido has landed on the roof. All the Scabbards are up there as well. That's also where all of the minks are. Or not all of the minks, but where a good chunk of the mink tribe is. Like a bunch of the Guardians and the Musketeers are up there. Wanda and Kara are not. They're down more in the live stage area or out front area, because that's where they're going to end up having to deal with Pedro, as I already went over, or not Pedro, avenge Pedro against Perospero, as I went over in Carrot's video. From there, we have it that now it is time for this big fight on top of the Skull Dome. The samurai kind of take a step back as the minks all go Sulong, and they start fighting against Jack and a bunch of the other, Jack, one of the numbers, and a bunch of just the other riffraff beast pirates, gifters, and whatever else that are up there. And the Sulong minks go through, and they just kind of decimate this part of the force that Kaido has. From there, it is now time, they defeat Jack, and Kaido sends Jack and the others back down, and then it is time for the Scabbards to then start fighting Kaido. And Inarashi and Nekomamushi have now gone Sulong as well, and they are, because they can control their power, because they've probably done various times of practice of turning into their Sulong forms over the 40-something years of their lives. 40, are they just 40 or are they 41? I think they're just 40, but the 40 whatever years of their lives, they've probably trained with their Sulongs quite a bit. And so they're going, they're fighting the rest of the Scabbards, Denjiro included, or everything, jumping in and start fighting and everything, trying to deal as much damage to Kaido as they can, while also simultaneously trying to dodge the Boro Breaths and the Wind Scythes and the Thunder and Lightning and everything else like that Kaido is throwing at them, plus just, Kaido's freaking durable anyway. So they're just doing all of that. Raizo does his scroll trick to reflect Kaido's Boro Breath back at them. Then they have it that for the Scabbards, and it's Denjiro, Ashura, Kinemon, and Inarashi. All do they try to replicate Odin's two-sword style that they have, practiced and everything over the years. And, they're using that technique against Kaido, which is enough to, it does make him bleed because they, hit his scar that Odin gave him. So they do hit that scar. And it does cause Kaido to bleed and be in pain for a little bit, but not too much time. He then, retaliates at them, which results in, I believe this is the attack that results in Kiku's lost arm, I think. Which they then just, Kinemon just quickly, cauterizes her arm. And and I'll mention this in the Kiku and the Izo videos again. I love the fact that Kaido's just kind of like, oh, one of your people got injured. Oh, you're going to cauterize her own arm and she's going to let you. Okay, I'm going to watch this. This is, okay, you get points for that. I find that so funny that Kaido's just like, oh, it's the middle of a battle. You're doing oh. Okay, you get points for that. I'll let you do that. It's just like that moment there. He's just like, okay, she's got guts. You guys got determination. I'll give you points for that. Because Kaido at least would respect that in the middle of the battle. Just like someone was just like, nope, screw it. My arm came off. I'm going to bite this thing. You're going to cauterize my arm so I stop bleeding and I can keep fighting. I think Kaido would have respect for that. So they just continue the battle for quite a while, and then eventually, by the time, eventually Big Mom gets up there, and then, Kid, Law, Zoro, and Killer, and Luffy all end up on the roof. And, of course, by the time they get up there, all the Scabbards, Denjiro included, are just lying on the ground. Very badly injured, and definitely not in good shape. So we have that moment, and then of course, we get the badass moment of Luffy just walking past two emperors to go check on the Scabbards, and then he has Law teleport all the Scabbards down and place them in a safe space and everything, which is just one of the treasure rooms on the second floor. Some of this stuff I'm just kind of blitzing through because I already went over a good chunk of it in detail when I talked about Kinemon, and I will go over more of it at various points when I talk about the other Scabbards. But there's just so much that happens with Onigashima, and of course Denjiro has his more shining moment, and one of his shining moments in Onigashima coming up in a little bit when we get to the Hiyori stuff. But the other Scabbards have some of their other moments that happen, when I get to Raizo, it'll be his battle against Fukurokuju, and then the releasing the water and everything else like that from Zo. And stuff like that, Kinemon I already went on, but Denjiro will have his moment and everything, and even Izo will have his moment with defending his sister and Kinemon and helping with all that stuff. So they'll end up broken up a little bit, and in a little bit they'll split off into their different areas. But so the next time we see the Scabbards, they do get treatment from this mysterious person who is definitely Hiyori. Definitely Hiyori. shows up, gives them like bandages them and cleans some of their wounds and everything else like that. I don't think she like stitches up any wounds, but she's like bandaging them and everything, and then she kind of disappears. And then when they wake up, they find that, oh, our wounds have been tended to. And then they're like, okay, what are we going to do next? And they're all just getting ready to like, okay, well, we got to go up and fight, or we got to go and try to find Momonosuke, that type of a thing. I am pretty dang sure that Denjiro is well aware of the fact that Hiyori is on this island, because he may have helped with like sneaking her on in one of the ships. We never get an answer exactly as to how Hiyori managed to make her way all the way from the Ringo region, where she had initially been with Zoro, where they initially left her, and I'll go over this in the Hiyori video as well, where they left her there, and then somehow made her way back to like possibly where Denjiro was, and that he helped sneak her into Onigashima on one of the other ships that they brought with them, even though a lot of those ships got burned and everything. He, may have snuck her in, and then, told her, okay, we're gonna do something here, and then we're gonna head off, and then you wait here, and then once the coast is clear, you sneak your way into Kaido's mansion, and then figure out where you're going to hide, and then eventually, lie in wait, so that way then you can, surprise and then lull Orochi into this, false sense of security and everything. Because we never get an answer as to how Hiyori got there. We know how Tama got there. She snuck there, she had speed and stuff take her. I guess there's a possibility that Hiyori could have gone along with them, but we never see Hiyori on that ship, so that's never confirmed one way or the other. But if that's like an SBS question for Oda, hey Oda, how did Hiyori even get to Onigashima in the first place to be there against that or whatever? Did Denjiro bring her hidden away on one of the ships? Did she somehow sneak aboard the ship that was that Tama was on, and explain to Tama who she was, and that she's kind of Toko's surrogate older sister type of thing? I don't know. Questions that need to be answered. So what ends up happening is they make their way to, they're getting ready to leave the room. Denjiro and the others are getting ready to leave the room, and then this is where they are, they hear a voice, and they open, the door opens, and they're standing there, much to their shock, is Odin, perfectly healthy. No signs of being boiled alive, shot in the head, nothing like that. Being dead for 20 years, nothing. Looks perfectly normal. And Denjiro, as do most of the others, fall for this, because they don't get that this is this fake Odin that was created by Kanjuro as a double, as one of his ink puppets. It is only Ashura who reveals it, or Ashura is the one that figures it out first. And then Denjiro ends up trying to attack the fake Odin, and that does reveal that it's a fake Odin. And so he then kind of fights against the Scabbards, and then the fake Odin then, reveals that he's got, explosives on him and everything. And, that leads to Ashura sacrificing himself in order to protect the others, so that way they don't get hurt in the blast, but it does kill Ashura. And then they all end up heading off to pursue Kanjuro, so that way he cannot get Momonosuke. Because they overhear something about where Momonosuke is, or something like that, or Kanjuro mentions it at some point in time. So as they are running through the castle that is now on fire, they end up coming across Orochi and Fukurokuju, which of course leads to just all of the Scabbards pulling out their swords and all getting to decapitate Orochi. And as I counted down in a couple of videos already, Orochi of course starts off with 8 heads. Kaido knocked off 1, and then a bunch of the Scabbards knock off them, to the point where now he only has 1 head left. Where he is down to 1 head. And via it's just stab him in the heart. Don't decapitate him anymore. Just stab him in the heart a bunch of times. He is gonna die very quickly. And he's not immune to stabbing in the heart. Or just drop him down the same hole that you dropped Big Mom and Kaido get dropped through later and let him die in the magma. They'll survive the magma. They'll be a little bit more likely to survive the magma. Orochi would not, but we're gonna move on from that because he still gets very well taken care of. So they all attack Orochi and cut off more of his heads, and then they all kind of head off in their separate directions. They run into Jack, and then Itarashi stays to fight Jack. And then they all just, Kiku and Kinemon are the ones that head off and end up going to try to find Momonosuke, along with like Yamato and Shinobu and everything. And then Kawamatsu and Izo, I believe, make their way down to the main floor where they end up, helping fight down there and everything. And Marco ends up interacting, or Izo interacts with Marco. Again, I'll get that more when I go to the Izo video. And then we kind of don't know where the F Denjiro goes, because we don't see him for quite a while. So presumably he's running around trying to figure out where the heck Hiyori is. Because eventually he obviously does find her in the treasure repository where she's, has Orochi, and where she has, she's lulled him in the false sense of security. Now she's got him trapped under rubble with one of the, sea prism stone nails jabbed into his skin, which, due to all the shaking going on with Onigashima, results in the nail coming loose, and then Orochi, who is still trapped under the rubble, is now able to turn into his, final, his beast form, but he only has one head now, instead of the 8 that she had to face last time, which she did not flinch when there was 8 heads coming at her to try to attack her and everything else like that at the banquet. So this one is not going to be nearly as intimidating, but, she also is under the impression that she is alone because she doesn't know that Denjiro is there yet, or that he'll be showing up very quickly. So Denjiro then basically ends up, he rushes in. Orochi has caught on fire because the Kamizo showed up and set him on fire, which I love that. I love that poetic license there, of the thing that's the little bit of hatred left of the Kurozumi has showed up, and it attacks Orochi instead of attacking Hiyori. It attacks Orochi, and lights him on fire, and now he's on fire, trapped under the rubble and trying to intimidate Hiyori. Denjiro shows up, beheads Orochi, and is protecting Hiyori. Because, as I said, and as I went over in the previous video with him as Kuroshiro, and having to take Hiyori in, raise her basically over the last 13 years and everything else like that as Komurasaki, and they built this bond, and it's, he would never try to replace her father or anything like that, because he would never view himself as being anywhere near equal to Odin in anybody's eyes, let alone trying to replace him in his own daughter's eyes. And he would never do that, and Hiyori would never expect him to try to do that or anything. But he is the closest thing to family that she has been around since she left Kawamatsu. After the first 7 years after Odin's death. This is, he is the closest thing that she has had. And yes, she has Toko, and I think Toko does know, or at least knew, that she was actually Hiyori and everything else like that. And Yasue probably figured it out, in all honesty, because he would have met, young Hiyori at various points as one of Odin's friends and everything. But, Denjiro has been this constant source of comfort and protection and friendship, and the closest thing to family that she's been around for the past 13 years. And he very much took that responsibility very seriously in trying to protect Hiyori, even though he knew he had to keep technically sending her into the jaws of Orochi in order for their plan to work. But he had explained all of that to her, and she's like, yes, I want to be a part of this, and I want to try to take out Orochi for everything that he has done, even if it's in some small way. And of course, so Denjiro shows up, decapitates Orochi, and now his head's on the ground, on fire, and it's not dying yet, so it's just Orochi's still kind of alive, and he's like continuing to threaten Hiyori, even though he's gonna be, a pile of ash in a short amount of time. So, and Denjiro's like, be careful, Hiyori, don't go over there, and she goes over, and this is where like we kind of get this reveal during the Rakugo play at the end of the arc, where Hiyori like stands up to him, and it's just like she's not threatened by him anymore at all, and she's like, you will be charcoal because Kurozumi were born to burn, specifically Orochi, were born to burn, and everything. Like Denjiro's there for like that bit. After that, we don't see them again for a little bit. I mean, like that is kind of happening during like the climax where we have Momonosuke trying to, pull pull Onigashima away from landing on the Flower Capital, and when Luffy is trying to, is building up his final attack against Kaido and everything, where they're gonna face off and Kaido's gonna get punched into the ground by the giant fist. So we cut away from them for a while while that's all finishing up, because that's all kind of like happening at the same time. And, so that's all taken care of. And then the next time we see them, they hear that, Nekomamushi has announced that Luffy has defeated Kaido and that Momonosuke has landed the island safely and everything. And then we get it to where it is now time for Momonosuke and Hiyori and the Scabbards, so Denjiro, to then make their way into the Flower Capital. So just kind of my own headcanon here is that after, Hiyori has done this, Orochi, Kurozumi was born to burn about Orochi and everything else like that, that she, after that's all finished and everything, and Orochi is like fully dead, fully dead. He's burned to a crisp. He's ash. He is very dead. Maybe Denjiro went over a couple times and just stabbed Orochi's corpse just to be on the safe side, which is a valid thing to do in this case. I kind of wonder if at some point Denjiro maybe like ran around the island, ran around Onigashima to try to see if he could find where the see if he could figure out maybe where any of Kanjuro or where Orochi's devil fruits may have ended up, so that way he could but I don't know how much he knows about that, for being able to get a hold of devil fruits or whatever, so that's a little bit left up for debate. I still kind of want Yamato to do something like that, but if they're still on Onigashima, now they're at the bottom of the the Wano Sea and everything, so they're kind of a little harder to get to, unless you're like a fishman or a merfolk or something like that, or your Law's submarine trying to get their way to it. We're gonna Titanic this thing and find those devil fruits, but maybe they're safer just at the bottom of the Wano Sea at the moment. Maybe. So what ends up happening is we get to where it is now time for them to reveal themselves to the citizens of Wano in the Flower Capital. So we have it. Momonosuke flies over the capital, scares the heck out of everybody, and then Denjiro shows up, and they think that he's Kuroshiro, and he's explaining to them, no, I'm not Kuroshiro. And then they have it that all of the Scabbards and Hiyori and Momonosuke and everything, they reveal themselves to the panicking citizens, and they're just like, oh my god, it's Kanjuro, not Kanjuro, it's Kuroshiro, wait, no, he's Denjiro, and that's Komurasaki, but no, wait, that's Princess Hiyori, and oh look, it's the rest of the Scabbards, and the dragon is Lord Momonosuke. So we have that whole moment there that happens where they're, and all of that stuff where they're just all revealing themselves, and Momonosuke is taking his place, physically 28 years old, taking his place as Shogun. And we cut around, we see all of the Scabbards are just bawling their eyes out. Not that I blame them at all. And Denjiro is one of them. Again, I don't blame them at all for this. They have gone through hell and back in the last 20 years in one shape or another. Even for the ones that jumped forward, there were still bits there that was this is going through hell at the moment. for allowing our country to have to suffer through this and everything. And so we get through all of that, and like they broadcast Momonosuke's speech, and they, you know, that's all over the country and everything. And you know, so he is the new shogun, and then the party continues. And then we cut to about a week later. Luffy and the other, Luffy and Zoro wake up. They have the giant party now set out across for like a second fire festival to celebrate, the victory of the ninja pirate mink samurai alliance and the Wano citizens and everything else like that. Like just that big celebration that's happening. And like Denjiro's enjoying it and everything. And then him, along with several of the other retainers, sense Admiral Ryukogu, Aramaki, has shown up. And they're like, oh, that's not good. So they head out and they start trying to fight against Ryukogu. And unfortunately, Yamato shows up to help them, and Momonosuke shows up as well in his dragon form, which I'm really hoping Momonosuke does at some point in time. I hope maybe we see him training in his dragon form at some point in time, maybe when like Yamato returns after his journey around Wano. When he returns back to the flower capital, we'll see Momonosuke training with someone for how to use his dragon abilities and everything else like that, like trying to master his own Boro breath or something like that, so that way he's better fighter and everything else like that for big final battle or just defending Wano in general. But so Denjiro is part of trying to fight against Ryukogu, as are Shinobu, Inarashi, Nekomamushi, Yamato. Kinemon is not there. I don't remember if Kawamatsu is there. Raizo is there, if I didn't mention Raizo. So like they're all there trying to fight against Ryukogu and at least cause a bunch of damage to him to try to get him to leave Wano and everything, while the others are like Luffy and the others are kind of watching, just in case they need to step in, but they don't want to have to step in if they can avoid it. They fight against Ryukogu. Eventually he's just scared off by Shanks' hockey in the background, but he caused a good amount of damage to the Scabbards to a degree, but he also like replenished a good chunk of healing parts of Wano and everything else like that because of his powers in that regard. So we're seeing some of that. They finish the battle. Ryukogu leaves, and then they head back to the flower capital, head back inside, and just kind of return to the party. Eventually, later that evening or whatever, they get the reveal from Sukeyaki that Tenguyama, that he's actually Sukeyaki, which all the rest of the Scabbards, except for Kinemon, had figured out already, which is just funny. So they're just like, oh, he's just like, yeah, can you just, not tell any of the citizens of Wano that I'm still alive or anything like that. Let Momonosuke be the one who is in charge. I will still like help and advise Momonosuke behind the scenes and everything else like that, like you guys are. But just don't tell anybody else that I'm alive, type of a thing. And so they all agree to it. So over the next couple of days, blah 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 blah, Scabbards probably spend some time. Denjiro spends some time with the Straw Hats, and then it gets to when it is time for the Straw Hats to leave. And what ends up happening is, Denjiro, along with the others, except for Kinemon and Momonosuke, all say goodbye to the Straw Hats in the morning. The Straw Hats probably all went around and said goodbye to everybody and explained to them. It was like, well, have you said goodbye to Kinemon and Momonosuke? No, not yet. We're going to make them chase us to the edge of the island and have us say goodbye there. And he's like, oh, okay, that'll be fine. He just like goes back to reading the newspaper or something. I don't know. We don't see that. But then we see him, Kinemon and, Momonosuke and such bring back the Straw Hat flag that they then hang in the flower capital to represent Wano as, Luffy's territory and everything. But they then also do like the big picture in the newspaper to show all of the Scabbards and everything to the citizens of Wano. So we get that. And now we have the most recent information that we have about Denjiro. So, in, Yamato's cover story, the, Oni child Yamato's Golden Harvest surrogate pilgrimage, whatever, Holy Inari Shrine Tour, or whatever you want to call it, sounds better. We have it that, of course, Yamato is, of course, making his way through all the different regions, and one of the regions, of course, that he stopped early on in was the Kibi region, where he is, kind of ambushed and bullied by a bunch of these little kids that keep throwing rocks at him because you have horns like the Beast Pirates and like Kaido does, and that's bad, so you're bad. So they keep throwing rocks at Yamato. Denjiro then shows up, traps the kids in a giant net, which is just funny, and like starts scolding them, and then he punishes the kids. Though it turned out he actually just wanted to make the kids eat Odin with Yamato, which they all just enjoyed. So it just like is trying to help like the kids become more familiar with Yamato and learn that Yamato is not bad. That you shouldn't judge someone just because they have the horns or anything like that. The way that, I understand completely the kids being wanting to be wary of Yamato because, like, Yamato has horns, the way that the Beast Pirates have horns, the way that Kaido has horns, the way that a lot of the, Tobi Roppo had horns and stuff like that. So I can understand them wanting to be or the numbers and stuff like that for how they all had horns. I understand the kids wanting, being very cautious of that, but that doesn't work just throwing random rocks at Yamato. And that's what, Denjiro is trying to instill in the children. Denjiro has also now been made the daimyo of the Kibi region. And that's the last time that we've seen Denjiro as of the recording of this video. We might get something else about Denjiro by the end of Yamato's cover story, or I expect at some point in time we'll see Denjiro again, possibly during the final battle, depending on how everything happens with that. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. I honestly don't remember if the Straw Hats left like a piece of Luffy's Viver card with Momo. That would have been a very good idea to leave one with Momo. So that way they can keep track of something, give Momo and the other something that they can use to keep track of if they do need to find Luffy again or something. So they know how to try to get a hold of him. But because we know that some of Wano did see Vegapunk's message, like Kinemon and Momonosuke heard it, but Denjiro was not there for that. We didn't see him there because he's not in the Flower Capital right now. He's off in the Kibi region trying to help rebuild it after everything that happened with Kaido and Orochi over the last 2.5 decades or whatever. So they're going through that. So that is what I have for Denjiro. The next videos for this will be going over Izo and Kikunojo. I have to figure out the structure for how I want to do their videos because obviously they're siblings, so there's a lot, brother and sister, so there's a lot there that is the same things that happened to them when they were growing up, but then things obviously start to diverge when Izo is, tags along with Odin when he tries to flee the country, and then Hiyori, and then, not Hiyori, and then Kiku is, of course, left in Wano with the rest of the Scabbards. So we'll see how I end up dividing that up for story stuff for video purposes. So that's what I have for Denjiro. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!